Hello, dear students. As we have started our second chapter, that is forms of business organization, and it is the most important chapter because this chapter contains all the forms of business organization. And in this series, we have already studied regarding sole proprietorship business, partnership business, and in previous class, we have studied regarding joint Hindu family business. Now, today, we will start a new form of business organization, and we will discuss it in details, not in brief, because this is one of the most important chapter for the commerce student. So as we are the student of commerce, we have to learn it nicely, and we have to learn each and every term related to it, because in future this chapter will become more critical and critical. So many terms related to the company we have to study. So in the beginning, we will try how much we can study regarding the information of joint stock company, or simply we can say it as company. Either we can say it company or joint stock company, both the term. So today we are starting the fourth form of business organization, that is joint stock company. So in simple term, company is the voluntary association of members where people combine together to do a valid business and to earn profit, where the liability of the members are limited to the shares taken by them, and where the capital of the business is distributed in transferable and equal amount of small units, that is known as share, which have a common sale, which denotes the perpetual succession or continuity of the business. So joint stock company is a large form of business organization, large form of business, and in this large form of business, the complete capital of the company is going to be divided in small fragments, that is known as share, and each and every share contain equal face value of that particular category. It means, suppose that if the share is issued, or if the share category is 50,000, so in that 50,000 category of share, each share must have the equal face value. Here face value and market value is different. Face value, it is printed value or MRP, and market value, that is demanded value. And market value can fluctuate, especially in the case of especially it will increase, not decrease, because due to the operation of the business, due to success of the business, the market price of each and every company's share often it is increased. So the face value of share will be equal. Suppose that if one share is rupees 10, then the each share will be sold on the condition of multiple of 10. So as per Company Act 2013, it is simply stated that a company is the company which is registered under registered under Companies Act 2013 or under the provision of any other previous Companies Act. Or any Scheduled Companies Act. So basically, this is the definition given as per the Act. A company is the company which is registered under Companies Act. It means for being a company, it is mandatory that the organization must be registered under Companies Act 2013 or any other previous provision of Companies Act or any Scheduled Companies Act. Now, on the basis of above definition, as we have discussed, we find following features in a company. First is it is incorporated association, because incorporated or a registered association, we can say incorporation is equal to registration. So incorporated is equal to registered. So as we have already discussed, and it is clearly mentioned in Companies Act, that a company is the company which is registered under Companies Act 2013 and any other previous provision of Companies Act. So the company must be in the existence if it is incorporated or if it is registered under Companies Act, not 1956. This was the previous Companies Act. As per the recent Companies Act 2013, the definition will be Companies Act 2013. But before the Companies Act 2013, Companies Act 1956 was applicable, and each and every company was registered under Companies Act 1956 or any other previous Companies Act or any Scheduled Companies Act like Banking Company Act or Insurance Company Act. So without registration, no one company or no one organization can come into the existence like company. Or organization can be there, but they cannot be operated as or in the form of company. Next is separate legal existence. It is, since it is created by law, that's why it has a distinct legal entity and independent entity from its members. It can, and due to this legal and distinct entity and independent entity from its member, a company can owe the property and can enter into contract and can file a suit against any one of the member or against any other person of the company, because it has a separate legal entity. Suppose that if I am going to create a company, for creation of the company I am going to make it registered, and after the registration of the company will become a legal person, and the assets and liabilities I am contributing, whatever I am contributing in the business organization, that will be known under only capital, but the company will not belongs to me. The company will the company will not belong to me, the company will belong to its own name, and all the assets which have been introduced by me, that will belong to the company. So, and if any liability arise, that will also belong to the company. So I will not be responsible to fulfill any kind of liability till the amount paid by me as I have decided or as I have promised. Next is perpetual existence. Under the Companies Act, it has a perpetual existence, as we have already discussed that it has a legal and separate existence from its members. Therefore it has a perpetual existence. There is no matter of a death, insolvency or insanity of any member of the company, because and due to this perpetual succession, it is stated members may come, members may go, but company goes on forever, but company runs forever. So there is no effect on the death, insolvency and insanity or change of members on the life or the existence of the company. Next is limited liability. As I have already discussed this term in the definition part, that the liability of the members in a company is limited to the shares taken by them. It means, suppose that if I have purchased the share of rupees 1 lakh, then the liability of myself will be limited to rupees 1 lakh. If I have given all rupees 1 lakh to the company, then a company cannot demand more amount in case of loss or in case of winding up or in case of super loss. Company cannot blame me. My capital can be utilized only to fulfill the loss, but company cannot ask on for a single paisa excess to the liability taken by me, to the affordability assured by me. So suppose that if I have purchased the share of rupees 1 lakh, but for 1 lakh shares I have paid rupees only 80,000, and if the company needs any financial support or if the company has to fulfill its liability, it can demand only for rest 20,000 rupees, but not it will be charged as the share of loss, and the amount will increase from 20,000 to 30,000 or 35,000 more. No, only rest amount I have to pay, and after payment the rest amount I will be free from fulfilling any kind of liability of the business enterprise. If the business is going to be in loss, there is no matter, my responsibility towards the business will be completed after submission of rupees 1 lakh or for whatever amount the shareholders have been promised. Next is separation of ownership and control. Since company has a separate existence, that's why the ownership and control both are separate in the company, and due to this separation, management of a company is in the hands of elected representatives of shareholders, known individually as director or collectively as board of directors. It means those people who are elected as director or the managing director of the company, or those people who have been selected for the committee of a board of directors, they will have to manage, they will have to represent the company only. But for the purpose of controlling, they are only there as the representative, they are only there to control over the business terms, but the ownership will be in the hand of the company, not in the hand of other people or the board of the members. So dear students, we have discussed regarding features of the company. There are so many other features like common seal on each and every. Here we can also write it. Next is common seal. It means it is a kind of a stamp, or it is a kind of logo, or it is a kind of a style in which a company is identified. Suppose that if logo of SBI is going to be used, it means this logo is the identification of SBI, and whenever this logo is going to be used, till the logo is going to be used, it will indicate that the company is in the existence. Because after the winding up, company cannot use its common seal on any kind of document, but before the wind up, as the company is in the existence, it will use its common seal on each and every documents of the company. Even though if any envelope is going to be issued, on that particular envelope of the company, it will also contain a kind of common seal which indicates that company is in the existence. Now we will study about the merits and advantages of the company.
Hello, dear students. Good morning.
Now, in advantages or merit of the company, first is liability is limited. As we were discussing in the previous few chapters, that the liabilities of the members are unlimited. In the case of sole proprietorship, in the case of partnership, liabilities of the members are unlimited, and due to this unlimited liability, they have to use their personal property for sort out the problem of the business or sort out the liability of the business. But in the case of company, the liability is limited, and due to limited liability, the risk of the shareholders or the risk of the members of the company is very less. Their risk is only to the amount submitted by them. Next is transfer of interest. In the case of company, each and every shareholder can easily transfer its share as the value of the share increases, and due to attractiveness of the shares for investment, they can transfer their interest easily to other person. It means the member can be anyone, and the member can transfer its membership to other person after transferring its shares taken by them in the company. So transferability is easy. But in the case of partnership, in the case of sole proprietorship, in the case of joint Hindu family business, the transferability of ownership is still or quite impossible. Or if it is going to be transferred, there is a long procedure. But in the case of company, transferability of the interest is very easy. Next is perpetual existence. Since a company is not affected by the death or insanity or insolvency of the member or change of the membership, that's why a company can be liquidated only as per the Companies Act or provision of Companies Act. It means a company cannot be wind up in any case if any member or if any person is going to become insane, insolvent, or dead. So the company will be in the existence continuously. Next is scope for expansion. So regarding the scope for expansion, a company can collect huge amount of capital from unlimited number of members, because in the form of company, number of members are unlimited. Especially in the case of public company, there is no limit of maximum number of members, and in the case of private company, maximum number of members can be 200. Therefore 200 or unlimited number of members are a huge source of investment in the company or capital formation in the company. And due to unlimited number of members, if each number of members will contribute less, again after contributing very less amount, it will create a kind of huge amount of capital in the company. So it is a it has a grand or wider scope for expansion of the business easily. Now next is professional management. Since in the company, a company can afford or to employ high qualified experts in different areas of the business management, therefore professionals are going to handle the management of the business enterprise, because the capital of the business is very high, the source of finance and resources are available in adequate quantity, and due to adequate quantity of the financial sources, they can hire a high quality of expert in different areas of the management. Now we will learn about the limitation or demerits of a company. As it is formed by human being, that's why there must be any kind of limitation or any kind of demerit too. So let us discuss. So dear students, first limitation of this organization is legal formalities, because as we have already discussed that company is a legal person and it can be started after the incorporation. Until or unless there is no incorporation, it is quite impossible to start the business. So there are a long process, or there is a huge requirement of legal formalities. That's why it cannot be easily started. Second is lack of secrecy. Due to huge number of members, the secret of the company cannot be fixed. The secrecy of the company will be minimized, because each and every member has the right to study the annual accounts, the annual reports, and due to the requirement to publish and file its annual accounts and reports, the secrecy of the company cannot be maintained. Next is lack of motivation, because divorce between ownership and control and absence of a direct link between effort and reward lead to lack of personal interest and incentive, because there is no ownership and control term is over here. There is no matter of ownership and control. If any person is going to be appointed as managing director, he or she is only a kind of representative for the company, so motivation will be very less. Next is delay in decision making, because this is the matter of red tapism. This is the matter of red tapism and bureaucracy, because red tapism and bureaucracy do not permit quick decision and prompt action, because there are so many number of members and a large term or a huge legal formality in each and every term. That's why decision cannot be taken easily. It will take time, and due to taking time, it create a kind of delay. Next is oligarchic management. It means a company is said to be democratically managed, but actually managed by few people, that is board of directors. Sometimes they take decision keeping in mind their personal interest and benefits, ignoring the interest of shareholders and company. Because in the company it was seen that the number of share is equal to number of votes, and if anyone is going to vote the particular person, the vote is going to be given and the person who is getting more and more votes, that will be the managing director of the company, but he or she will be appointed as managing director to protect the interest of the company, and they have to take decision on behalf of the company. But it is seen it is seemed that in so many times they become biased and they ignore the interest of the shareholders and company. They often use to protect their personal interest, and due to keeping these terms, they take the decision after keeping in mind their personal interest only. So dear students, these were few limitations of the company, but still a company is a large form of business enterprise with a large opportunity of profit. Thank you.